The whiskey bottle clattered to the floor, shattering into a dozen amber shards. Before I even realized I had swatted it from his grip. The smell of cheap liquor filled the tiny kitchen instantly, burning my nostrils mixed with the scent of old fryer grease. My son let out a piercing shriek the moment I yanked him back, his tiny body trembling against my chest from the sudden motion. I was shaking so hard I could barely hold his head up, but I wrapped both arms around him like a vice, staring at the man who had just tried to force a dipped finger into my infant's mouth. My father-in-law stood there blinking at the broken glass, his face turning a deep shade of crimson, not from shame but from anger. He looked from the mess on the linoleum to me, and for a second the room was dead silent, except for the wailing of my 4-month-old baby. Then he laughed, a dry wheezing sound that made my skin crawl. "You are such a dramatic woman." He spat the words out while stepping over the puddle of alcohol. It was just a taste to numb the gums. My mother did it for me, and I turned out fine. I backed away until my hips hit the edge of the dining table, clutching my son so tightly he started squirming, not just from fear, but from my grip. My heart was hammering against my ribs, like it wanted to break through. I looked around for my husband, but he was in the living room, setting up the playpen like nothing was wrong. He had not seen it. He had not seen his father dip a calloused finger into the shot glass and move it toward our son's parted lips. I screamed his name. "Mark, get in here now." My mother-in-law appeared in the doorway first, wiping her hands on a dish towel with a look of annoyance plastered on her face. "What is all the yelling about?" She looked at the glass on the floor, and then at me. "Did you drop that? That was expensive scotch, you know." She walked right past the mess and reached her arms out toward me, or rather toward the baby. "Give him to Mama." She said it so casually, the same way she had said it 1,000 times before, ignoring the fact that I was the one who birthed him, ignoring the fact that I was currently hyperventilating. "He is crying because you are upsetting him," she continued, her voice taking on that condescending kindergarten teacher tone. "You are making him anxious with all this negative energy. Let Mama hold him and calm him down." She stepped into my personal space, her hands grabbing at the blanket wrapped around my son. I twisted my body away, putting my shoulder between her and my child. "Do not touch him." I snarled the words, the volume of my voice finally bringing Mark into the kitchen. He looked between his parents and me, eyes wide and confused. "What happened? Why is there glass everywhere? Your wife is hysterical," his father said, pouring himself another drink from a different bottle on the counter. "She threw my drink on the floor because I was helping the boy with his teething." Mark looked at me for an explanation, his face softening when he saw the tears streaming down my face. "He tried to give our son alcohol, Mark." I choked out the accusation, pointing a shaking finger at the old man. "He tried to put whiskey in the baby's mouth." Mark's eyes snapped to his father. "Dad, seriously, we told you no old wives' tales." The old man waved his hand dismissively. "You kids are too soft. A little drop helps him sleep, helps him grow chest hair. You are overreacting just like she is." My mother-in-law took advantage of the distraction. She lunged forward again, her fingers latching onto the baby's onesie. "Stop being ridiculous and give my baby to me." She yanked hard enough that I stumbled forward, my socks slipping on the wet floor. I almost went down into the broken glass, but I caught myself on the counter edge. Adrenaline flooded my system, turning the fear into pure cold rage. I shoved her away with my free arm, a solid push that sent her stumbling back into the refrigerator. "Don't you dare grab him." I screamed it so loud my throat burned. The room froze again. My mother-in-law looked at me with shock that quickly morphed into venomous anger. She straightened her blouse and narrowed her eyes. "Look at you," she hissed, pointing a manicured finger at my face. "Look at how unstable you are. You are endangering my son and my grandson with your temper." This is exactly what we were talking about with Mark. I looked at my husband, betrayal stinging my eyes. "Talking about what? What is she talking about, Mark?" Mark looked down at his feet, rubbing the back of his neck, typically avoiding conflict. "Mom, not now," he mumbled, but she ignored him. "No, now is the perfect time." She crossed her arms over her chest, looking at me like I was a stain on the carpet. "We have decided that this arrangement is not working. You are clearly too stressed with your little job and trying to be a mother. You are failing at both." My mouth fell open. I worked from home as a graphic designer, and I made more money than Mark did. I had never missed a doctor appointment. I had never put my child in danger. Unlike the man currently sipping whiskey 3 feet away. "Excuse me," I whispered, the absurdity of it stealing my voice. "We think it is best if you quit your job." She said it like she was ordering dinner. "Quit your job and move in here. We have the space. Dad and I can raise the baby the right way. We can be mom and dad since we have the experience. And you can focus on being a helper. Maybe get yourself together before you do any more damage." My ears started ringing, a high-pitched whine that drowned out the sound of the refrigerator humming. They wanted me to be a helper. In my own child's life, they wanted to play mommy and daddy while I watched from the sidelines, living under their roof, subject to their rules and their alcohol remedies. I looked at Mark, waiting for him to laugh, waiting for him to tell them to go to hell, but he just stood there looking miserable. "Mark." I said his name slowly. "Did you agree to this?" He looked up, his eyes pleading with me to be reasonable. "Honey, they just want to help. We save a lot of money on rent. And you have been tired lately. Maybe having them take over the heavy lifting wouldn't be so bad." The world tilted on its axis. I felt nauseous. The man I married was standing there suggesting I hand over our child to these people because he was too cowardly to stand up to his mommy. I tightened my grip on my son, who had finally stopped crying and was just whimpering softly. I did not say another word. I did not argue. I did not explain why giving an infant alcohol was child abuse. I did not defend my career or my mothering. I just turned around and walked out of the kitchen. "Where are you going?" My mother-in-law barked, following me into the living room. "We are not done discussing this. You cannot just walk away when we are trying to fix your mistakes." I grabbed the diaper bag from the couch with one hand, swinging it over my shoulder without breaking stride. "I need the car keys," I said to Mark, who was trailing behind his mother like a lost puppy. "You are not taking him anywhere," my father-in-law bellowed from the kitchen doorway. "That is my grandson, and you are not driving while you are hysterical." "I am not hysterical," I said, my voice scary calm even to my own ears. "I am leaving. Mark, if you want to stay here with your parents, that is your choice. But I am taking my son, and I am going home." Mark stepped in front of the front door, blocking my path. "Babe, come on. You are blowing this out of proportion. Just stay for dinner. We can talk about the moving situation later. Everyone is just heated right now." "Move, Mark." I stared him dead in the eye. "If you do not move out of my way, I will call the police. And I will tell them your father tried to feed a minor alcohol, and that you are holding me against my will." His face pallid. He saw something in my eyes that must have scared him, because he stepped aside slowly. But my mother-in-law was not done. She rushed forward, reaching for the baby again. "You are not taking him," she screeched. "He is ours." I spun around my back to the door, shielding my son with my entire body. "If you touch me again, I will press charges." I spat the words at her face. She recoiled as if I had slapped her. I fumbled with the lock, my hand shaking so badly it took 2 tries. Finally, the bolt clicked. I threw the door open and the cold night air hit me like a slap. I did not look back. I ran to the car, keeping my head down, struggling to buckle the car seat base while balancing the baby. I could hear them yelling from the porch. "Get back here, you ungrateful brat. Mark, do something." I slammed the car door shut, cutting off their voices. My hands fumbled with the ignition, praying the car would start, praying Mark would not come running out to stop me physically. The engine roared to life. I threw it into reverse tires, screeching against the gravel driveway. As I backed out, I saw the 3 of them standing on the porch, under the yellow glow of the security light. It looked like a scene from a horror movie. My husband standing between his parents, looking defeated while they screamed into the night. I did not breathe until I was on the highway, the streetlights blurring into streaks of orange through my tear-filled eyes. My phone started buzzing in the cup holder. Once, twice, then a constant stream of vibrations. I glanced down and saw Mark's name. Then, his mother's name. Then, unknown numbers, which I assumed was the land. I reached over and turned the phone off, throwing it into the passenger seat. The silence in the car was deafening, broken only by the soft sniffles from the back seat. I reached my hand back blindly until I felt my son's tiny foot. I rubbed his ankle with my thumb, needing the tactile proof that he was safe, that he was with me, that he was not breathing in whiskey fumes or being called son by another woman. The drive home was 40 minutes of pure hell. Every headlight in my rearview mirror looked like Mark's truck. Every shadow looked like a threat. My mind was racing a mile a minute, replaying the scene. The way she said, "Give him to mama." The way Mark said they just want to help. It was not just the alcohol. It was the entitlement. The ownership. They did not see me as his mother. They saw me as an incubator that had served its purpose. And now that the baby was here, they wanted to discard me and keep the prize. I pulled into our driveway and killed the engine, sitting in the dark for a long time, just listening to the ticking of the cooling engine. I was terrified to go inside, terrified that Mark would be waiting there. Or worse, that he wouldn't be, that he would choose to stay in that house of horrors with them. I finally mustered the strength to get out, carrying the car seat inside, being careful not to wake the baby. I locked the front door. Then I deadbolted it. Then I wedged a chair under the handle. I knew it was irrational, but I didn't care. I went from room to room, closing the blinds, turning off the lights so it looked like no one was home. I took my son into the nursery and sat in the rocking chair, not turning on the lamp, just rocking him in the darkness. My phone was still in the car. I didn't want to see the text messages. I didn't want to hear the voicemails. But I knew I had to eventually. I needed to know where Mark stood. An hour passed. Then 2 headlights swept across the curtains and I froze. The sound of Mark's truck door slamming shut echoed outside. Heavy footsteps coming up the walkway. The sound of a key scratching at the lock. The door didn't budge because of the deadbolt. He knocked, softly at first, then harder. "Honey, let me in. Please, we need to talk." I didn't move from the rocking chair. I just held my son tighter. "Go away, Mark," I whispered into the dark, even though he couldn't hear me. "They are going to be worried sick." He yelled through the door. "Mom is having panic attacks. She says you stole the baby." I stood up then, my blood boiling all over again. Stole the baby. Stole my own child. I walked to the door, but didn't open it. I leaned my forehead against the cold wood. "I did not steal him, Mark. He is my son, and if you ever want to see him or me again, you will get back in that truck. Drive back to your parents' house, and tell them that they are never seeing him again." There was silence on the other side of the door. Then a heavy sigh. "You can't be serious. They are my parents. They love him. They just have old school ways. Is that what you call it?" I screamed through the wood. "Old school? Feeding a baby whiskey is not old school, it is abuse. Telling me to quit my job and be a helper is not love, it is control. If you can't see that then, you are just as bad as they are. Babe, please open the door. It is cold out here." I turned the lock slowly, but kept the chain on opening the door 2 inches. I could see half of his face. He looked tired and sad, and for a second I wanted to let him in. I wanted to cry into his shoulder and have him tell me it was going to be okay. But then I remembered him standing in the kitchen, watching his mother shove me, and doing nothing. "I am not letting you in tonight," I said quietly. "You need to decide who your family is, Mark. Is it me and your son? Or is it the people who want to replace me? You can't have both, not after tonight." He reached his hand through the gap, trying to touch my face, but I pulled back. "Don't do this," he begged. "Don't make me choose. You already chose," I said, my voice breaking. "When you stood there and let them tell me I was unfit, you made your choice. Now you have to live with it." I slammed the door shut before he could reply. I slid the deadbolt home and backed away. I could hear him crying on the other side. Soft, muffled sobs that broke my heart. But I didn't open the door again. I went back to the nursery and lay on the floor next to the crib, listening to my son's breath. I knew tomorrow would be a nightmare. I knew the police might show up. I knew lawyers would get involved. I knew his parents would spin a story to everyone we knew, painting me as the crazy hormonal woman who kidnapped her child. But as I watched the moonlight filter through the blinds, I knew I had made the only choice I could. I was not a helper. I was a mother, and I would burn the whole world down before I let them hurt him again. The next morning I woke up to the sound of pounding on the door. Not Mark's knock. This was authoritative. Heavy, rapid bangs that shook the frame. "Police, open up." My heart dropped into my stomach. I scrambled up, running a hand through my messy hair. I checked the monitor to make sure the baby was still asleep. Then I walked to the door. 2 officers stood on the porch. Mark was behind them, looking down at the ground. His parents were behind him, smirking. "We received a call about a child welfare check," the officer said, his hand resting on his belt, "and a report of a domestic disturbance involving alcohol and a minor." My mother-in-law stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "She is unstable, officer. She was drinking last night and trying to drive with the baby. We just want to make sure our grandson is safe." I looked at Mark. He still wouldn't look me in the eye. They had flipped the script. They were accusing me of the very thing they had done. I opened the screen door, keeping my body between the officers and the hallway. "I was not drinking," I said calmly. "My father-in-law attempted to feed my 4-month-old whiskey. I removed my child from the situation. If you want to test me, feel free, but you are not coming inside without a warrant. And you," I pointed at Mark's parents, "get off my property before I file a restraining order." The officer looked between us, sensing the complexity of the situation. "Ma'am, we just need to see the child to confirm he is harmed." I nodded. "Wait here." I went and got my son, who was smiling and gurgling, unaware of the war being fought over him. I brought him to the door. "He is clean, he is fed, he is safe," I said, lifting him up so they could see. The officer nodded, seemingly satisfied. "He looks fine, folks. This looks like a civil matter." My mother-in-law screeched. "She is lying. Look at her eyes. She is clearly hungover." "Mark, tell them." Mark finally looked up. He looked at me holding our son. He looked at his parents' faces twisted with hate. He looked at the police officers waiting for his statement. And I waited, holding my breath, wondering if my marriage was over or if it was just beginning. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Officer," he started, his voice shaking. "My wife doesn't drink, but my father does, and he did try to give the baby alcohol last night." My jaw dropped. His parents gasped in unison. "Mark, what are you doing?" His father roared. Mark ignored them. "I want them trespassed from this property," he said, looking directly at me. "If they come back, I want them arrested." The silence that followed was heavy and absolute. The officer nodded, turning to the in-laws. "You heard the man, folks. Time to go." As they were escorted away, screaming obscenities, Mark walked up the steps. He didn't try to hug me. He just stood there looking broken. "I am so sorry," he whispered. "I know that isn't enough, but I am going to spend the rest of my life trying to fix this. If you let me." I looked at him, then down at our son, and I realized the real fight wasn't with the in-laws. It was determining if trust once broken could ever be fully restored, or if the scars of his silence would haunt us forever. So here is where I am at. I have not let him move back in yet. He is staying at a hotel. His parents are blowing up social media, calling me every name in the book. And half the family is taking their side, saying I am ruining the relationship over a joke. I am standing firm on the no-contact rule. But Mark is begging to come home. He says he finally woke up, but I can't get the image of him standing silent in that kitchen out of my head. I feel like if I let him back in, I am saying his hesitation was acceptable. But if I divorce him, I am breaking up my son's family over one night. I am so tired and I just want to do what is right for my boy. Does a moment of cowardice define a man forever? Or do I give him the chance to be the father he promised he would be, and risk being wrong again?